Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Southern Soul. I'm your host, Tony Morris. And some of you may be wondering, why is the show called Southern Soul? Well, Southern is because originally I'm from Alabama. And the soul part is, guess what folks, I'm a psychic medium. And on Southern Soul, we'll talk about not only my career as a psychic, but we'll also discuss a number of different topics on the world of spirituality. And it can range from, meditation to today's topic, which I'm going to save for just a little bit later. Now, we're filming inside a studio again. Now, just because we're indoors doesn't mean we have to stay inside. All I have to do is snap my fingers and voila, we're out in the middle of the woods. We're back to nature. Now, I don't know about you, but I really enjoy taking hikes and being out in the middle of the woods because there's something about being with the trees, the forest, that really allows me to bond with the world of spirituality and connect with my own spirituality as well. One of the things that we also do on the opening of the show Southern Souls is we take questions from our viewers. So if you don't mind, let's take a look at those 3 questions that I have for this week. Okay, I've got some questions here. The first question is, how often do you meditate? Well, actually, I meditate quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I'm doing it right now. Just kidding. Whenever I do a session for clients, psychic consultations, I always meditate for about 20 or 25 minutes before we actually even begin our conversation. And during that part of the meditation, a lot of insights come to me at that time. So a lot of work has already been done before we even begin, like I said, the actual conversation. But that's my work. That's work. For me personally, I try to carve out at least 20 minutes a day just to kind of turn everything off and really tap into, my soul, my own spirituality, and really just communicate with myself and be open to whatever the universe wants to share with me. Now, I'll tell you this, you'd be surprised just how easy it is to start a meditation practice. You can start off with 5 minutes a day, 7 minutes a day, and before you know it, it becomes just as common as brushing your teeth. And I hope you do brush your teeth. Okay, next question. Would you encourage others to become a psychic? Well, it all depends. If someone has a passion for wanting to be a psychic and actually has had experiences where they want to learn more about it, because you can develop the skill, just like if someone's really good at playing the piano, if you have practice, you can get better at it. But you really also have to have the passion, meaning like you have to want to have a purpose for being a psychic or being a great piano player. So if you don't have that passion, I wouldn't necessarily go out and say, hey, why don't you be a psychic? It would be like someone coming and telling me, hey, why don't you be a professional football player? That ain't gonna happen. But what I would encourage people to do is tap into their own intuition. Intuition's different from being, like a psychic. Intuition is honoring whenever you get those gut feelings or whenever you sense something is right or when something is wrong, following through with those intuitions. So I would encourage that. Okay, let's take that last question. Do you receive visions for yourself? That's a great question. I tell people that I have 3 filing cabinets in my brain. I have a filing cabinet for clients. I have a filing cabinet for the general population. And then I also have a filing cabinet for myself, meaning I receive visions for clients, the general population, and also receive visions for myself. Now let me tell you, I don't get the lottery numbers and I don't get secret codes and stuff like that, but I do receive visions of possibilities for me. Now let me remind you, just like I tell my clients, I have to do the work. So just because I see a possibility doesn't mean it's naturally going to happen. I have to be an active participant. I'll give you an example, and I love this example. 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago, I woke up in bed, like around 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was shown a vision of the Wheel of Fortune wheel. I'm sure most of you know it's that famous prop that's on that great TV show that's been around forever, it seems. And I'm thinking, why am I seeing the Wheel of Fortune wheel? I haven't seen that show in like 20-something years. Little did I know, 9 months later, I was on the Wheel of Fortune show. And the interesting thing is, I went on the Wheel of Fortune show not to win a trip to Aruba, and not to mingle with Vanna White. I went on the Wheel of Fortune show in order to tell a nationwide audience that I was a psychic medium and be quite comfortable with it. And I'll tell you this, it was the most entertaining way for me to announce my new career to a large number of people. So there you go. That's my little story with Wheel of Fortune. And that story is actually a nice segue to the spirituality topic that we're going to cover today. How do visions, along with maybe dreams or out-of-body experiences, how do they manifest? How do they come about? Well, you'd be surprised. So stay tuned, and we're going to cover some ground on those topics in just a second. How many of you have always been attracted or connected with something special in your life? Now this could be, say, maybe it's a location, the beach, or maybe it's an object, like a certain kind of clothing that you've always been attracted to. Shoes. Some people have shoe fetishes. For me, ever since I was a kid, I've always had a fascination with pine cones. That's right, pine cones. Now this beauty here actually fell from a pine tree in Santa Barbara, California. I don't think I'd want it to hit me on the head because it's actually almost the size of a small football. Now I always thought that the reason why I was attracted to pine cones was because I grew up in Alabama, South Alabama, where there were a number of pine trees all around me. I couldn't walk down a street without running into a pine tree, literally. Now my fascination with pine cones has led to my wanting to collect things with pine cones on them, like pine cone design or pine cone motif. I brought a couple of examples. This is a pine cone iron box in the shape of a pine cone, one of my favorites. A good friend of mine who's really a talented artist sent me this beautiful pine cone drawing that he did with pencil drawing. It's one of my favorites as well. And then finally, believe it or not, I actually have a pine cone martini glass. Imagine that, me, martinis, right? Now, the reason why I'm bringing up all this stuff about collectibles is because nowadays I'm collecting other things. I'm collecting books. That's right, my home is turning into a library. And the type of books that I'm buying or collecting have to do with the world of spirituality. Now granted, when my career shifted, almost 8 years ago, I really had to become a student again. Well, in other words, I'm always a perpetual student, always learning, always trying to, grow my mind, learn something new. And one of the books that I've acquired in this journey is a book called DMT, The Spirit Molecule. DMT, The Spirit Molecule. Now, DMT is short for a very long medical term, something like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. It's not from Mary Poppins, but DMT, trust me, is a short word for a very long word. And the reason why the way I was drawn to this book actually was I had gone to a lecture, and the lecture was being presented by a hospice in Palm Springs, California, and the director of the hospice was going to be talking about near-death experiences. And you can imagine, being a hospice caregiver, they've come in contact with a number of those type of scenarios, near-death experiences with people, the patients, who are getting closer and closer to, say, their transition. and this happens quite frequently. So during this lecture, this book, DMT, the Spirit Molecule, came about, and I thought to myself, I'm going to check this book out. So I bought it. It's written by a medical doctor, and what I actually discovered a number of different things from reading this book. First of all, it's written, some of the content's very medical oriented, so there's a lot of medical terms, and some of it initially might have been a little bit, over my head. So I actually had to read a couple of the chapters over again just so it could soak in and I had a better understanding about it. But DMT is an enzyme. DMT is an enzyme that's actually produced in your body by the pineal gland. Now, the pineal gland is something that we're all born with. When you're a baby, the pineal gland starts in the roof of your mouth, of all places. But as we evolve, as we grow and become older, the pineal gland itself migrates from the roof of your mouth to the top of your head, to the crown of your head. And that's where the pineal gland is. Now, the pineal gland is responsible for secreting the enzyme DMT. And again, it's a short word for a very long word that I'm not even going to attempt to try to pronounce. So the pineal gland secretes this DMT. Now, what does DMT do? DMT is the enzyme that allows us to have dreams, that allows us to tap into our psychic intuition, that allows us to have out-of-body experiences, have astral travel experiences. So you can imagine my pineal gland is getting quite a workout these days. The other interesting thing about this book, DMT, the Spirit Molecule, is it has a number of different case studies by this doctor who wrote the book. He and his staff were working with a number of different patients where they actually injected people with the enzyme DMT, actually gave them dosages, sometimes heavy dosages of DMT, so that they could actually understand what types of experiences they were having as a result of these injections. They're all documented in the book, and they range, again, from having psychic experiences, out-of-body experiences, astral travel to places outside of this immediate area on Earth, connecting with other souls on a different plane, spiritual plane. Now this is where it gets really fascinating. As I'm reading this book and all these different case studies, I'm going, oh my gosh, that has happened to me. That has happened to me. That has happened to me. So all these case studies, well, a number of these case studies that were written by the doctor and put in this book, where he actually injected patients with the DMT enzyme, those different case studies I've actually experienced. And it wasn't because a doctor injected me with DMT. It was because my pineal gland was really kicking up the juice. It was working overtime, and I was allowed to have these different types of experiences as a result, I guess, of my pineal gland really doing its job. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Guess what? The pineal gland is in the shape of a pine cone. So now I have my true answer. I know why I've been attracted or drawn to pine cones all these years. It's not because I grew up in Alabama. It's because the universe was trying to groom me early on to know that there's going to be a connection made. And when that connection is made with you and the pine cone, a la pineal gland, you're going to know exactly what to do with it and what type of difference you can make for the world. So, I guess you'll never look at a pine cone the same way again, will you? So, I've always had a connection with pine cones, a great fascination with pine cones. The other fascination that I've had since a child has been my little red wagon. Now, this is my favorite part of the show, Southern Soul. I call this segment the Little Red Wagon segment. Think about it. Your little red wagon is probably your first toy. You know, it's been with you since you have been a child. But it's also a metaphor for life. You put your dreams, you put your aspirations, you put what you want to experience in your little red wagon, and you carry it through life. And on today's show, we talked about the pineal gland and what dreams, intuitions, out-of-body experiences that we've had as it relates from the secretion of DMT. Now, what I'd like for you to consider is don't just write those intuitions, those premonitions that happen to you off as coincidence. There's no such thing as coincidence. Instead, what I'd encourage you to do is to write them down. Like keep a journal or keep a log and put them in your little red wagon. Don't overanalyze those premonitions, but don't discount them either. They're happening to you for a reason. Those intuitions, those gut feelings, they're all meant to move you forward, not keep you idle. So that brings me to the closing of the show, Southern Soul. Think about it, your little red wagon has a set of wheels, and those wheels are meant to move you along. So until next time, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next show.
Yeah.